What if a war wasn't spiraling out of control because of the enemy, but because the person leading it has already lost control? Right now in the Middle East, the situation unfolding does not look like a carefully managed military operation. Instead, it feels like watching a crisis grow faster than the people in charge can contain it. And the most alarming part is that the consequences may soon affect people far beyond the battlefield. Donald Trump has now told Americans to prepare for significant casualties in the coming weeks. He says the conflict could continue for 4 to 5 weeks, and he claims the strategy will resemble what he calls the Venezuela model. At the same time, he insists the United States is holding productive conversations with Iran's leadership. But Iran's chief negotiator publicly dismissed that claim, calling it nothing more than a delusional fantasy. Meanwhile, events on the ground are moving in the opposite direction of diplomacy. An American F-15 Strike Eagle was accidentally shot down by friendly fire over Kuwait. Iranian missiles are slipping through Israel's Iron Dome defense system. Across the region, American embassies and military assets are coming under attack. Financial markets are already reacting to the tension. Dow futures dropped about 500 points overnight as investors reacted to the growing instability. At the same time, oil prices surged more than 7%, climbing past $72 per barrel. These are the early signals of a conflict that could ripple into the global economy. What we are witnessing does not resemble a mission heading toward victory. Instead, it looks like the framework of a much larger crisis forming in real time. In the next few minutes, we are going to break down exactly what happened, and why the political, military, and economic consequences could soon reach your everyday life. Imagine you are sitting at a negotiation table, about to close a major deal. Instead of signing the agreement, one side suddenly flips the table and punches the other negotiator. Then they step outside and tell reporters the meeting is going great. That strange situation is actually a good way to understand what just happened with the Iran negotiations. Reports suggested that a diplomatic framework was almost finalized through mediators in Oman. Yet before the deal could be completed, military action began instead of diplomacy. The administration now claims discussions are still happening with the same leadership being bombed. So let me ask you something simple right now. Does that sound like negotiation to you, or something completely different? Analysts around the world are asking the same question. Pause for a moment and drop your answer in the comments below, because understanding the timeline behind this conflict is extremely important. To understand that timeline, we need to go back a few weeks before the missiles were launched. A key figure in that story is Ali Larijani. He serves as the Secretary of Iran's National Security Council, and he was the chief negotiator during indirect talks with the United States. Those talks were reportedly being mediated through Oman's foreign minister. On February 12, 2026, Larijani appeared on television and explained what was happening. He said Iran was negotiating directly with the United States through diplomatic channels. But he also warned that outside forces were interfering with those talks. Larijani claimed Israel had inserted itself into the process. According to him, the goal was to undermine and sabotage the negotiations. He warned that the region could be destabilized if the talks collapsed. And he specifically told leaders in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey to pay close attention. At the time, that warning did not receive much attention internationally. But only weeks later, the negotiations collapsed and the region moved toward open conflict. Whether that warning was ignored or simply dismissed is still debated. But the timeline now looks very different in hindsight. Recently, the Wall Street Journal reported that discussions were still happening between the United States and Larijani. Donald Trump went even further and said those conversations were productive. However, Larijani responded publicly on social media with a very different message. His statement directly rejected the idea that negotiations were happening. He accused Trump of plunging the region into chaos through reckless decisions. He said the slogan, "America First," had effectively turned into Israel First. According to Larijani, American soldiers were now paying the price for political ambitions. and he claimed the conflict had been triggered by Washington. Larijani ended his statement with a clear declaration. He said Iran was defending itself from aggression. He insisted Iran had not started the conflict, and he described the war as something forced upon his country. That language does not sound like the tone of ongoing negotiations. Instead, it sounds like the language of a government preparing for a prolonged confrontation. Trump says diplomacy is happening. Iran says those talks do not exist. Between those two narratives lies the reality on the battlefield. Missile strikes are increasing across multiple countries. Casualties are already being reported, and the political gap between the two sides continues to widen. Earlier today, an American F-15E Strike Eagle crashed over Kuwait. The aircraft was reportedly shot down during a friendly fire incident. Both the pilot and weapons officer survived the crash. Local residents helped rescue them before authorities arrived. The image of an American fighter jet destroyed by its own side carries powerful symbolism. It reflects the confusion and complexity surrounding this war. Analysts say such incidents often happen during rapidly expanding conflicts, but this crash was only one piece of a much larger pattern. Iran has continued launching retaliatory strikes across the region. Missiles have reportedly targeted locations in Israel and near Gulf states. Pro-Iranian militias have attacked American positions in Iraq. One drone strike destroyed an American ammunition facility in Erbil. Militia groups and protesters have also surrounded several American embassies. Many of these groups are connected to Iran's wider proxy network. Intelligence analysts predicted this network would activate if war began. And now those predictions appear to be coming true. The battlefield is expanding across multiple countries at the same time. That creates enormous challenges for military commanders. Fighting on several fronts stretches resources and decision-making, and that pressure increases the chances of dangerous mistakes. While the Middle East conflict intensifies, another development is happening on the other side of the world. The United States has reportedly delayed $13 billion in weapons sales to Taiwan. Those sales had already been approved by Congress. But the administration says the delay is tied to an upcoming meeting with China's president. The New York Times reported that the delay aims to keep relations smooth before that summit. At the same time, the war in Iran is shifting military attention away from the Pacific region. Many defense experts believe the Pacific is the most important strategic theater of this century, so this shift has raised serious questions. Critics argue that the decision sends mixed signals internationally. China has long pressured Washington not to support Taiwan militarily. Now, billions in weapons support have been paused. And the pause is happening during a major global crisis. Supporters of the administration say the move is temporary diplomacy. Critics say it represents a dangerous trade-off between strategic priorities. Either way, it shows how one war can reshape global policy, and those choices could affect alliances for years. Right now, two very different models of power are visible in this conflict. Iran has responded with coordinated messaging and organized military retaliation. Its leadership activated networks across several countries at the same time, and its public messaging has remained consistent. Whether people support Iran or oppose it, the response has been structured. Officials have delivered carefully worded statements. Those messages appear designed to influence international public opinion, especially the opinions of people inside the United States. On the American side, the messaging appears far less consistent. The president initially suggested the conflict might last only a few days. Now the estimate has expanded to several weeks, and different officials are describing different objectives. Some political leaders are even calling for additional conflicts. Others insist the war will remain limited. Meanwhile, the casualty numbers continue rising, and the public hears different explanations about the strategy. When one side communicates a unified message and the other side appears divided, that imbalance becomes important. Wars are not fought only with missiles and soldiers. They are also fought through perception and political support, and that battle is happening right now. You might be wondering why this matters to you personally. The truth is, global conflicts rarely stay confined to distant battlefields. They eventually affect ordinary people through economics and policy, and those effects are already beginning. Oil prices jumped more than 7% overnight. If shipping routes near the Strait of Hormuz are disrupted, prices could climb much higher. That means more expensive fuel and transportation. And it also means higher prices for everyday goods. Stock markets have already reacted sharply. Dow futures, dropping hundreds of points, signals investor anxiety. For many people, that means changes to retirement funds and savings accounts. Geopolitical events often move markets quickly. Families with relatives in the military face a much more personal concern. The president has warned Americans to expect additional casualties. Military operations across multiple countries increase that risk. Every escalation raises the human cost. Looking ahead, analysts generally see three possible paths forward. The first scenario is a negotiated ceasefire through quiet diplomacy. Countries like Oman or even China could help broker an agreement. Both sides would likely claim victory while ending the fighting. The second possibility involves long-term regional realignment. Some Gulf states could strengthen partnerships with China or other powers. They might look for alternative security guarantees outside Washington's influence. Over time, that could reshape Middle Eastern geopolitics. The third scenario is the most dangerous outcome. Continued retaliation could trigger further escalation. Ground troops might eventually be deployed despite current promises, and global powers could slowly become involved. That escalation spiral is what intelligence agencies fear most. Once several major powers are pulled into a conflict, controlling the outcome becomes extremely difficult. History has shown how quickly regional wars can expand, and that risk is why analysts are watching events so closely. Whatever direction this conflict takes, one thing is already clear. The geopolitical framework that existed before this war has changed. Diplomatic assumptions that once seemed stable are now being tested, and the results will shape global politics for years. 3 weeks before the invasion, Ali Larijani warned that negotiations were being sabotaged. That warning is now being revisited by analysts around the world. Some argue the crisis could have been avoided. Others believe confrontation was inevitable. So now the questions shift toward the future. Did Iran strategically outmaneuver the United States? Or did internal decisions push Washington into a difficult situation? And can this conflict still be contained before it spreads further? I want to hear your thoughts about this. Do you believe diplomacy can still stop the escalation, or do you think the spiral has already begun? Share your perspective in the comments because I read every single one. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. We are getting close to 20,000 subscribers, and the situation is evolving very quickly. New developments are happening almost every day, and staying informed has never been more important. Also, hit the like button so more people can see this analysis. Share the video with someone who wants a clear explanation of what's happening, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update, because the next chapter of this story could unfold at any moment.